39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28. 27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7. 6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up.
Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And hey, these are going to be politics about local tonight. I don't know if it's really politics. If you call the Marion County Fairgrounds politics, hey, there might be some politics involved there. But hey, we have a guest on tonight that wants to share a story with us about working at the fairgrounds. And I'm going to do this right out of the gate. I got my magic 8 ball here. I'm going to see if, because I'm a little torn about this show because I don't know if I should really do it. Let's see what it says. The magic 8 ball says, better not tell you now. So, hey, we'll just have to get through the show and see how it works out because the magic 8 ball is a little scared about this too, because this is some serious stuff. So we have Jeremy Teefball on, and he worked at the fairgrounds, and he's here tonight to tell us a story about what it's like to work at the fairgrounds. And I'm sure we'll have some interested parties here and whatever else that may lead us that way. But this is going to be an interesting conversation that we have tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Jeremiah on, and we are going to, before I do bring him on, I want to, make, my disclaimers or whatever you might want to say that I did do some research on this. The parties, the Marion County Fair Board, I did reach out to them, each of those folk, and they basically said we do not want to come on the show because of litigation purposes, and we don't want to jeopardize anything like that. So they have been offered to tell their side of the story. So that being said, we're going to bring on the one person that is willing to tell their story. So I'm going to bring on Jeremiah. We're going to see what he's about and get to know him a little bit. And then we'll bring on the panel. And then I'll try not to forget Mark Small talk tonight. So let's see that right now. So Mr. Teefball, how are you this evening? I can't, I don't hear your something there is not working right. So while he's getting his sound worked out there, I can't hear you now. I can't hear any sound. So you're not muted. That's not the problem. So we had him on earlier and sound was working just fine. So he is working. Nope, can't hear you. Can't hear you now. So yeah, this is what you get when you have live TV or live internet. So anyway, we have the live chat is on. So let's go to the banners. And if you do have a question in there as we're going along here, hey, we always play it. And nothing yet. So it looks like it's probably in your computer, in your setup there, is the mic's not working or a volume or something like that. So why don't you do this? go ahead and go out and come back in, and let's see if it'll pick it up then. So while he's gone, we'll I guess we'll fill up some space here. Oh, I do have a new bad dad joke if you want to hear it. It's about dog. About dog. Did you hear about the dog that got out of a really long prison sentence? You know how he did it? He took a flea bargain. Yeah, I know. This is what you get when the technology is not working tonight. You get bad jokes. So we'll see that. And anybody have any questions, comments, or anything like this? We already got. Hey, this is one from Rusty Johnson. He says, "Hey, it's a good man. You can trust him." So hey, you already got some. And then of course we have Dorn. Whoops, Dorn wants to ban Lucy from the show. Get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich. That's going. So we'll see if we can't get him back. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and bring our panel on here. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, everybody. How you doing? I'm going to start with Ed tonight. Ed, how are you tonight? We'll see if we can't get our guests because it's going to be an interesting show if we have to do it all in sign language. So how's it up there in South Bend? Notre Dame, they didn't win so much, did they?
They did not. That was the one, coming from Southern California, that's the one game of the year I need them to win, and they let me down. So
yeah, what was the score? I didn't even watch the thing. Was it?
John, we don't need to talk about such things.
Okay,
yes.
Sort of like the weather up in South Bend, not so good. All right, yeah. Tiffany, how are you this evening? I mean, we were supposed to see you on the Talk to Tucker commercial on the Colts game last night, and
I was in the back.
Wow, I can tell this is going to be good there. So for anybody that was aware, that Talk to Tucker, a local company from Indianapolis here, and Tiffany is
it's a statewide brokerage. It's the oldest and largest brokerage in the state of Indiana. Started in 1918. A lot of great things started in 1918 after the First World War. But they put together a wonderful ad to run during the football game. And for the people who saw it, they really enjoyed it. I missed it, but I promise I was in the background.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the Talk to Tucker is a bunch of people. I saw a lot of people on there. Look there. This is shameless self-promotion right here.
What? No. This is a visor. But if you need me, just call me.
If you want to talk to Tiffany, that's her number right there. So you call her up.
That is literally my number. So yeah.
Well, we hope so. That's pretty bad advertising.
I only have like one. This isn't like the business line that rings someplace.
It's hard to put in your pocket there. So, all right, Lucy, how are you doing this evening?
I am better than I deserve given my sordid past.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to put you all backstage again, and it looks like we got Jeremiah, and then we'll get you right back out here. All right. Do we have sound?
Is it working now?
No, I do not have sound. I think can you turn the volume up?
It's up all the way. I mean, everything is set up exactly the way it was whenever we started.
Uh-oh. It's coming in. You're coming in there.
Yeah, I mean, everything is exactly the way it was before we started.
Okay. Hey, I can hear you now. Wow, it's like all right. Well, hey. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
It's a little quiet, right? I mean, it's a little the volume needs to go up just a little bit. So
how about now?
A little better. So
I mean, I've got turned all the way up. I'm super close right now.
Yeah. Go ahead and put it super close to you, because that helps.
Just hold it up like this.
There you go. That's just like good old time, like championship wrestling, baby. We're gonna call out the deal there. So all right. Hey, that's good. You love technology. So anyway, off to a little rocky start there, but Jeremiah, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what was your role at the fairgrounds and some of that stuff, and then we'll get the panel out here and we'll start asking some questions. So we'll have people in the chat there. Can you see the live chat? Are you able to see it?
It's off to the side here, but there's nothing there, so I'm not sure.
Okay. What you need to do is go to where it says comments.
Comments. Okay.
Yeah, on the top, because you're probably in the private chat. We usually don't.
There we go.
That. There you go. Hey, I got y'all set up here. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and all that good stuff, and then we'll get going.
My name is Jeremiah. I was the executive director for the Marion County Fairgrounds and Event Center for the last 3 years. I was asked to leave in August of this year after the fair. There was some stuff that wasn't really I was comfortable with, and I had talked to some board members about it prior to the fair, and it got worse during the fair to the point where I had to make a formal complaint, and it went on from there.
Yeah. So, and then how long were you at the fair?
This would have been my third year. I started April 2020.
April of 2020. So you survived COVID, and didn't they have some shootings there last year and all that? You survived all that, but then this year was a nice and calm event, and they asked you to go.
Yeah, I started just before the fair 2020 during COVID. We had to push back the dates a little bit. And then I was just the ground superintendent then, or maintenance, whatever. And then right after the fair, they created a position and asked me if I'd like to have it and gave it to me.
Okay. And then, so run us through now you are the executive director of this Marion County Fair. Is that correct title?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so run us through what that job description is.
There wasn't really a job description. They had never had one there before. So, it was pretty much a whatever I could get done. So we started creating contracts for event rentals, liability waiver forms. There had been some issues with some folks getting injured there, and pending litigation for that when I started, and some other contracts that were questionable that had to be overseen, and just kind of went from there.
Yeah, so I know that when I was at the fair, I was not real impressed with the contract that they had you signed up as a vendor. It wasn't very clear. So I could imagine maybe some things maybe needed some help in that. So, all right, well, I think we have enough background there. I'm going to go ahead and bring the panel on. So when I do that, I usually switch this part around, and then you get to be out here, and then I bring on all the people on the side. So you're on the hot seat. I usually go down at the bottom, and we'll put Ed at the top there. So there you go. And you met our people backstage because you are actually good enough to get on early enough to meet people. A lot of times our guest comes on and they just go right into the show. But so you've already met Ed and Tiffany and Lucy, and we've sort of introduced them while you were getting your things together. So we're going to start out with Ed up there, and I know he probably doesn't know a darn thing about the Marion County Fair, but he generally has a pretty good question. So Ed, what comment or question might you have for our guest?
You're right. I don't know anything about the Marion County Fair in South Bend.
Well, so when I started, I've never been involved in politics in any way, shape, or fashion. When I started there, it was weird to me that the Marion County Fairgrounds is not associated with any kind of government. Most people don't know that. It's a private business, a nonprofit, 501c3, no government or county affiliation at all. Yet the board for the fair are all politicians. There were all GOP members, trustees, and one Democrat that was on the board. So the rest of them were all folks from Franklin Township or Perry Township or City County Council in one shape or another. So unfortunately, the argument I had was that some of the decisions that were being made were not in the best interest of the fairgrounds, but with the best interest of a different agenda. So I started complaining about it, and not really complaining, but questioning it, the integrity of some of the decisions that were being made. And that was when my demise started, I guess. So there's a circle, I guess, of events. The city of Indianapolis, the City County Council graciously allots $150,000 a year to the Marion County Fairgrounds for infrastructure repairs or operational costs, things like that. That proposal was written by Paul Anay, who's a city county councilman. The Fairgrounds president is his campaign treasurer. So he writes the proposal makes it through the city county council and gets voted and approved. And then Paul Anay works temporarily at the fairgrounds during the fair as what they call the public information officer. And then he is paid a substantial amount in return for his services there, and then given a bonus as well that none of the board members except for Cindy Mowry seems to have known about. And so, I questioned it. But back in December of 2021, there was a GOP fundraiser party for Brian Mowry and for Paul Anay. And what I had learned is that Councilman Anay had taken the campaign checks that he was written, the fundraiser checks, and deposited them into his personal bank account, and essentially was just living off of them for his personal expenses because he wasn't really employed. And I guess, I don't know what he did for a living, but there was some issues with his campaign checking account, and he deposited those checks into his personal checking account. So I questioned, why that wasn't reported. His treasurer of his campaign fund knew about it and didn't do anything about it. And then during that same campaign fundraiser party, there's a vendor that uses the fairgrounds, and every year the expense that he should be paying the fairgrounds gets waived. And then he makes a campaign contribution guided by wherever Cindy Mowry tells him to pay it. So I questioned that as well. In fact, I was sent an email directly that says, so-and-so will be on the property on this date. You're to avoid, any communications with them. Any communications with them will go through me directly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I had questioned why we were waiving, $50,000 and $60,000 a year in expenses for someone, only to have them come back later and make campaign contributions, through wherever she directed them to go. So as I start to question all of these things, I became, I guess, public enemy number one there, which is not essentially why I was terminated. In fact, when I was terminated, they didn't actually give me a reason. They just said that the board had opted to go a different direction. There were board members who argued it and effectively resigned from the board. I no firsthand information, but effectively resigned from the board because they knew the actual situation and what was to come as a result of my being terminated.
Oh, so Ed, did you find a question in there? I know Lucy's got one if you don't, so I'll go to her. Lucy, what do you think about this?
I think
sounds
that,
hold on.
Well,
Ed's got something.
Well, no, I was gonna, and I've been watching the comments as well, and so I think, especially on some of the payments, I know at the end you talked about $50,000 to $60,000, but and I don't need like an exact number, but how much, you've talked about money being exchanged. Like what exactly in range are we talking?
As far as the expenses, so there's a campground on the facility there, and one of the vendors uses the campground for 3 or 4 months every year as part of his business operation, and they're just they don't have to pay anything. They don't have to pay. All other vendors who are there for the fair pay a camping fee. They pay a water fee, electricity, things like that. But the one vendor is just not expected to pay anything, and for a very large, substantial amount of money. And then, like I said, comes back later and makes campaign contributions, where the city county council, in their graciousness, awards taxpayer money to fund the fairgrounds, that is then, I guess, wasted or not. I really don't know. I'm not an accountant, but I would think that if we have enough money to waive $50,000 or $60,000 in fees that should be being collected, we shouldn't have to go and get $150,000 from the city county council for, from taxpayers.
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, Lucy, go ahead. I know you're just wanting to get in there, so get it.
Well, it seems that we might have a criminal mastermind. I think you mentioned the name Cindy Moorer. And so my question for you is your termination not under whistleblower laws? Does this apply? Have you consulted an attorney?
My termination. So that's a sticky area. I was told not to discuss. I wasn't actually there in the letter that they gave me. It just says that your services are no longer needed. It was supposed to have been a unanimous decision by the board, yet you won't find it recorded in any minutes of a meeting. It was all, hey, come see me one-on-one. Let's talk about this. And this is after Cindy Mowry had resigned as president of the board. So this was Abdul Hakim Shabazz was the acting president. And he had told everyone, I'll talk to you one-on-one because we'd like to terminate him. We would like to make Paul Anne the executive director of the fair. I've already talked to him about it. He's interested in it. So there were board members who opted not to vote, and there were board members who voted against my termination. Yet I was still terminated and told that it was a unanimous decision by the board.
It's interesting. I sit and have sat on a couple of different boards, and usually when there's a situation like this, you call an executive session and it's off the books, but you do have to record that you went into an executive session. So I'm guessing that there was no executive session recorded in the minutes either.
I honestly don't know. They stopped having board meetings because the members of the association then had tried to contact the board and wanted to know what was going on. So the bylaws require that the board be a 15-member board. And that had been secretly rewritten and slipped through to be a 12-member board. But at the time, it was only a 7-member board. And then when the other members who resigned because they didn't want to weigh in on the situation, knowing all of the information at hand, went down to, I think, maybe 5 members. So members of the association were trying to find out, hey, what's going on here? We don't understand. And Abdul had actually sent a message out saying, hey, to the other board members, if you know anybody who would like to be on the board, please let me know. Well, the bylaws require, I think I'm summarizing, that the board members come from the association members. So you would think that if there's a board member vacancy, it would have went to the association before it was just, hey, if you have a friend who's interested in being on the board, let me know. Currently, there are members of the board of directors for the fairgrounds who had, until this year, never even been to the fair, weren't members of the association, had never been to the fair. They're just politicians who, served a purpose.
Yep. So before we get to Tiffany, we do have our guests, our viewers here. Now, this is going to be one that's probably, you're going to have your naysayers on this. So this person here, this is Debbie Labadell. She says, you got fired and you're pissed, get a job. So what do you say to the folks that are, you're going to have haters when something like this comes down? What might you say to answer that?
I'll happily show her the proof. If she'd like to have lunch, I'll go through every document I have. Emails, text messages. There are documents that are public information. So again, I'm not really versed in politics. I was never a politician. I was asked to run for the new District 20 next year for the City County Council. So Cindy Mowry is the treasurer for Paul Anne's campaign. I believe, but don't have factual information, is the treasurer for Brian Mowry's campaign, is the treasurer for the Marion County GOP, is the treasurer for the Franklin Township GOP, is the president again in violation of the bylaws, again, is president of the Marion County Fairgrounds.
Sounds like she's the boss. I mean,
yeah,
really.
I mean, I've got 3 years worth of text messages. I've got emails. I've got whatever, someone would like to see. I'm as transparent as I can be. I'm not, I've made several prayers before this meeting. I've talked to some other folks that are familiar with your program because I was apprehensive about being on here. But I've gone to the election board with stuff that I've found or concerns that I have. And it's absurd to me to think that someone would take, $5,000 worth of campaign funds, put them in their personal account, and then use them for living expenses, and then tell the election board that's not what happened. But I could get on my phone right now and pull up my checking account and airdrop it to any printer on my network. Yet they haven't been able to get him to submit his checking account, which should be public information, because he's a politician and they have to, I think, quarterly submit their expenses and things like that. Again, I don't know any of that stuff. But the groupings, like who his trustee is public information. His campaign group or whatever is public information. And again, the association, I think as recently as last week, has essentially demanded in writing in an email to the board secretary, to the former president, to the current president that's president again, and requesting yearly, according to the bylaws, there's supposed to be an association meeting. Every year in December, there's an association meeting to go over the results of the fair, the standings of the business itself, elect new officers for the board. And I think that those requests by association members have just gone unanswered and neglected, or flat out just told no.
Yeah, it just, there's a lot of stuff here, and it's always, I think it's good to hear from both sides. And I know that there's pending litigation and no one wants to talk and these different things. And it is concerning because the Marion County Fair, obviously Lucy and Ed don't really probably go to the Marion County Fair, but a lot of our viewers do. And we do appreciate the fact that you did talk to people that have been on our show and you still came on. That means that we're doing okay. So Tiffany, do you have a question or a comment that you might want to throw in here?
Sure. So, I applaud your bravery coming forward and having this conversation with us. And I don't feel qualified to ask, any questions about the situation. I don't know any of the players. But my question to you is, how did you come to work for the county fairgrounds? And had you had other roles within the GOP? How did you find yourself in that job?
So the fairgrounds itself is not a political, I don't know what the jargon would be or the term, but it's a business. It has nothing to do with politics at all. Mm-hmm. The folks who are in control of it make it so for other agendas. So I come from a festival production company, and we had met with board members to do a country music festival on the grounds in 2019.
Music. Love it.
And then we had all that stuff locked in. We had some dates to do the festivals at the fair. And then, of course, COVID happened and shut the world down. And we had to cancel shows in Illinois, Indiana, Texas, Arkansas. And at that time, they had a vacancy at the fairgrounds for a maintenance person. Well, when we canceled all the stuff, I ended up not having anything to do. So one of the board members who I knew there and was a friend of mine asked me if I was interested in the maintenance position just to get the place up and running and back into it. It was in terrible disarray. So I took that job because there was nothing else going on. And then the fair rolls around. I think we were the only maybe county out of 3 in the whole state that did the fair in 2020.
Yes, I remember that. It was interesting that, they're going to do it, which I thought it was a good idea. Tell you the truth.
And I come from an event background. So, I mean, I can run events from a cell phone. I just, in my head, it's second nature stuff that I can do. And no one from the board seemed to, I don't know if because of COVID or what, but have any idea what was going on to do the fair. So I just kind of stepped in and took over and just got through the fair. And I was still, a subordinate to folks, and I didn't know what was going on or, the hierarchy of certain people. And the sheriff's department was out there for security, and some other folks were out there, and it all it went off and was fine. And like I said, shortly after that fair ended, they offered me the job and created the executive director position. I asked multiple times for a job description, but it was pretty much just make the place successful. So it was on the verge of insolvency whenever I took the job. And then there was a substantial amount of income and potential there when I left in August of this year.
Well, it sounds like you did a great job. Thank you for saving.
Again, it's one-sided, and I'll be my own personal cheerleader all day long. I'll tell you how great of a job I did, and
well, if there's money left, if it was almost insolvent when you started, and if there was money left over, plenty of money when you left, that means that you did a good job. I mean, I don't need to know anything in between. If there's money there, you did your job.
Yeah, I think we were on track this year with the money from the city county council and some other new contracts that had come to play. I think we were on track to gross about $1 million this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's gross, so your expenses are obviously out of that. That's not your net amount, but
it's
yeah, it was doing
C3. So as long as you can pay all your bills and the people,
it was doing very, very well. Yeah, I had been out there. I also worked downtown for the city in voter registration, but I probably worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing events, private events outside of the fair, just to generate income, to improve the buildings, improve the infrastructure. We had several new sponsors that had came in while I was there, helping out lots and lots and lots of in-kind trades with folks that did plumbing and construction and things like that.
So I
do. Did they build a? I'm sorry, Tiffany. Did they build a racetrack too out there? I know that some of the neighbors didn't really like that.
And again, that's a point of a really emotional group of neighborhood folks out there. So the racetrack's been there since the 1984, I think. There were some improvements made this year. Okay. I take that back. Early 2021, there were some improvements made, and it was subcontracted out to another business to run and operate. So, but the track itself had actually been there since early 1980s. I don't remember the exact year.
Okay, yeah, we used to go way back when I was a little kid. I don't hardly remember any of it, but State Fair and the Marion County Fair, always a good fun time. So Lucy, I see you. Do you got another question there or comment?
I'd just like to point out I grew up in Marion County. I'm a Marion County girl. Went to the fair many, many times. Somebody put in the chat that they brought a relative there and they're like, is this it? And yeah, it's surprisingly small, but you've got to admire the fact that they put it on for so many years. Super interesting, having been somebody that went to the fair, to find out about all the shenanigans and the political happenings behind the scene. But as somebody myself, I ran for United States Senate in 2016 and 2018 here in Indiana. I've worked on other campaigns. Man, that's some shady stuff, to take campaign contributions and put them into your private account. I ran for federal office. That's some serious federal election. Oh yeah, that's pretty serious. So I would like to see
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know the process. I didn't know who to talk to, who to bring in. So I emailed every member of the city county council. It was like, hey, here's what's going on. I don't know what to do about it. Please help. Some of them emailed me back and said, here's who you need to talk to, so on and so forth. And then I just followed the process from that point on. I mean, even going as far as the attorney general's office, looking for help, because these are taxpayer dollars, and you're responsible for, helping the taxpayers. And I emailed consistently the election board and was told, basically they backburnered it because there was an election coming up. And, but I let them know like 3 or 4 months prior to the election that this is what's going on. And like I said, you know, I can get on my phone, I can download my checking account to any printer there. If somebody accuses me of a felony, you know, I'm going to be in your office the next day saying, here it is right here. Instead, I was served with a cease and desist order from the GOP attorney saying that I could possibly be sued for defamation of character. And I simply replied to him and said, you know, I'm aware of that if it wasn't true.
Exactly. Truth is an absolute defense. And
So
I need to pick on the old parties, you know, the Republicans and the Democrats here, because it doesn't matter where the fraud is or at what level or how egregious it is. It's always circle the wagons to protect the brand. We're in a state that is a straight party ticket voting state. And so when you start to look at the results of the elections, because there's mostly, you know, Republicans in the state, so many Republican candidates win, not on their merits, not because they've got great ideas. My opponent, Mike Braun, his whole thing was, I'm going to do whatever Trump says. You know, look how that turned out for the world. So if they just do the straight party ticket voting, it doesn't matter. Like, you can literally run a dead person and they'll win. It's crazy.
and I don't know. I mean, he's a city county councilman. I don't know what the requirements are for that. If there's any post high school education requirements, or you know, I would think that his employment history would be public information as well. You know, not only is his finances for the campaign portion of it, because that's his business, as I understand it. If you're a politician, that's a business that you run. You have to have a tax ID number, et cetera. But I don't. Again, I'm not versed in all of that stuff. I've unfortunately been deterred from having an interest in that stuff, just for some other stuff. Now, the litigation that's current between myself and the Fairgrounds is all public information. You can find it on my case. The complaint that we filed, my attorney and I filed against the Fairgrounds, is public information. It tells you what happened, you know, stuff like that. But as I told I met with two different neighborhood association folks there, or groups that have different concerns, and showed them the information. Told them I'm as transparent as I can possibly be. If you have a question, here it is, right here in writing. John's welcome to give my email out to these folks that are commenting in your chat line here, and you know, hey, take me to lunch. I'll tell you the whole thing. I'll pay for it so that there's no. It doesn't look like you're trying to buy an opinion or whatever. I'll pay for lunch. I don't care. I didn't know who to contact. I didn't know who to go to. Fortunately, some of the folks that John's familiar with kind of gave me some guidance and told me who to talk to. And it seems to have gotten some traction and just now has gone stagnant. So I don't know. Some of the stuff that's been happening is pretty egregious, you know, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm just one person. And unfortunately, you have the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah, I would say in some cases when you get into politics, you'll get that because, you know, they're not going to turn themselves in. So I'm going to go ahead and put your email address in the chat, and there you go. If somebody wants to contact, you got your nickname's Haas, right? Is that correct?
It is, yeah. I'm 6'9" and 325 pounds. So
yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
that's
rolled
hot.
right into that nickname. that was something else. So I got a question for you. Going forward, you know, and how do you think this is going to affect the Fairgrounds? Do you think that there's going to, you know, just business as usual? Is it going to change?
That was the conversation I had. I was like, look, the Fairgrounds was my passion. When you wake up in the morning and you can think about nothing else but what you're thinking about, that was, for me, it was the Fairgrounds. I would wake up and my day would start, and we would start, you know, with getting contracts prepared, issued, contacting event planners. I know I've been in the event business in Indiana for 20 years. So I knew people that were doing different events, other venue owners, things like that. So we were bringing in a lot of new stuff, and you know, sometimes to dismay of the neighborhood folks, and sometimes it was beneficial.
Especially that
But
race car driving.
but it's generating revenue, which helps us do stuff at the fairgrounds and improve the buildings. So those buildings were built in the 60s, and I don't know how much improvements there's been since then. But a lot of them, you know, are in really, really bad shape. So that was, I would wake up and think, here's my list of stuff I got to do today. I would lay there in the evening trying to fall asleep, thinking, you know, what do I got to do tomorrow? And that was my passion. So my apprehension coming on here is, what's the detriment to the fairgrounds itself in exposing all of the, if malfeasance is a good word, all of the bad behavior that's going on. And because with the shooting in 2020, I'm told there was a shooting in 2017. All of those things were turned into things that weren't actually what had happened, but it made for better news. Essentially, though, it just had a negative stigma. The property had a bad stigma to it. We updated the name, updated the marketing, and like I said, I spent countless hours doing the labor myself to improve the property, contacting colleagues from the business over several years to get folks in there, and that is my fear and my concern. Even though it's a conflict now, since I have a litigation against it's not against the board, it's against the association. So it's a conflict for me to help the association members with information, because ultimately I'm suing the association. And those board members, by the time this comes to fruition, they might be long gone, because they might not get reelected. But the things that they have done has affected what's going to happen in the future. So not only that, but it puts the relationship with the city county council at peril. It had already had a difficult relationship with the sheriff's department and with IMPD, and we were just starting to foster that and bring it back. So it's very heartbreaking, I guess, for something that I was so incredibly passionate about. And if folks that know me know that I get worked up really fast, I get loud and very verbal, because I'm just passionate about it. Like, this is what I spent. This is what I was called to do. When you wake up and this is all you can think to do. There are things that God designs people to do, and I was designed to work at the fairgrounds. I had several jobs before that, and this is what I did. So to answer your question, I really hope that it doesn't tarnish the reputation of the fairgrounds itself. But we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so my job on this show is to be the one that answers the tough questions. I'm the designated. Every family has one, right? The designated.
You're the Kraken.
Well, and I've got to bring up the viewer question that you've probably already seen in the comments, Jeremiah, and it may be an uncomfortable thing to ask, especially with me being female. But somebody's saying in the comments that there was a sexual harassment allegation. What do you have to say to that?
There is a sexual harassment investigation, and I was the victim.
Like Tiffany's
That
like,
puts a
what?
new spin on things. That puts people ask these questions, and I'm like, okay, fair game. I'll go ahead and ask it.
Yeah. I mean, in the counterclaim, but yeah, I was very aggressively pursued, and to the point where I actually had to file a formal complaint.
Good for you.
Prior to being terminated, I had contacted the EEOC for assistance, and had met with the attorney for the board, who was actually a board member and an attorney, and then the vice president at that time, who was also an attorney. And I expressed my concerns, and essentially was told that there's no standard of behavior for the board to follow, that if I feel uncomfortable, please feel free to come back and talk to him again. It proceeded to get significantly worse after that. In fact, I was taunted for even filing a complaint. I'm 6'9" and 320 pounds ish, depending on how big my lunch was.
Me too. Me too.
To have to I don't know. I'm not really intimidated by anybody, but to have to say that I need help because this person's doing this to me, it's
That
not
kind of puts a man in a really strange position. So I have to ask the very prurient question of, were you being harassed by a male, a female, or someone that was confused?
I was just it was a board member, and there
Are
was
you
a
allowed to say
resignation.
anymore? Is it
There
public
was a
knowledge?
resignation as a what I understand is as a result of my complaint, and then I was terminated, and then now that person's back on the board again. The bylaws have essentially just been tossed aside, and the board has just gone rogue and doing whatever they want to do.
Are they paid board positions?
They are not. They're volunteers.
Really?
But you
Again,
know what?
though,
Corporate formalities have to be followed. I mean, we are so serious about this with the
and
Libertarian
that's
Party. I
and
mean,
so
we like get out the bylaws and argue over like semicolons and crap like for hours. This is serious stuff.
association members have sought multiple uh, uh, legal advice and on what to do. The board itself has an attorney, which they're saying is the association's attorney, or he represents the association. Unfortunately, he doesn't represent the association. The association members have actually emailed the attorney and said, "Hey, look, this is not, the course of action that we want. This is actually a retaliation for some other stuff." And again, those have gone ignored.
Wow, it sounds like it's maybe not the most organized situation out there. When you have volunteers, sometimes that's what happens. Wow, this is it's been very interesting. And when might we find some resolve in this? What is the
I wish I had that information for you. Unfortunately, I don't control the election board. I don't. I give the information out to folks, and I don't know. Like it's a nonprofit, so all of the stuff for a nonprofit is public information. Board meeting minutes should be public information. Members that are not the public are welcome to come to board meetings of the Marion County Fair Board because it's a nonprofit. But they just quit having board meetings because they were afraid that association members were going to show up with questions that they couldn't answer. I is my assumption. I don't know that that's why they quit having board meetings. I wasn't privy to that. I just know that they stopped having board meetings, and multiple association members have requested an actual association meeting, and they've gone, basically on deaf ears.
That just seems kind of shady, like the attorney's not doing his job. If I were an association member, I would potentially, I don't know if the legal term is injured party, but I'd certainly feel like they weren't doing their job. And I think the Supreme Court of Indiana would actually be the one that those association members should complain to. I'm just guessing, though.
And my concern is this, that if you have a board that's gone rogue and they are executing contracts on behalf of the fairgrounds, they are making new agreements or whatever that are long-term agreements on behalf of the fairgrounds, and they're not constituted, then those agreements aren't
legitimate.
Legally binding.
Legal.
So, but that's going to be additional expenditures on behalf of the association then if there's some ridiculous contract that's been executed right before someone's term ends just to get a favor pushed through. Again, you said you have a conspiracy theory portion of this, but if
let me put the banner up.
if somebody's trying to do something to push an agenda through before their term may end or before they may be gone, that lease for that racetrack was a 30-year lease, not reviewed by the board, executed by a single person for 30 years with no cost increase.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, to say the least. Well, you know what? This has been very interesting and a little bit eye-opening. And the reason I ask is because maybe when the dust settles on this thing and everyone can talk about it, maybe we would be able to have some other input on this. But right now, what you've said is very interesting, and I think that's what our show's about. Is we want to give everybody. We want to. Yeah, go ahead, Ed. I'm not going to shut you down. I just want to say we respect everybody's opinion on here, and that's what we do. Go ahead, Ed.
I had two really quick questions for Jeremiah, and they're really simple. One is, had you talked to any other media outlets? And the second one is, so where do we go from here? Like, now that this is out, like what's their next steps there?
I sent them. What was the gentleman's name from 59? Russ.
Russ McQuaid.
Yeah, I sent the information to him. Again, he. One of the reporters called me back and talked to me about it and said that they were going to pass it off to him because he handles the government stories or whatever. And then I never heard from him. They gave me his email, told me to forward everything to him. So I forwarded it to him. There's a reporter from the IBJ that was following it and doing some investigations. And I think she was contacted by one of the fair board members and told, again, no firsthand knowledge. This is just that person relaying it to me, was told that they should probably leave that story alone if they were an up and coming reporter. So,
And then what was the second part, Ed? You said, where do we go from here? Is that right?
Yeah.
And again, I would love for some resolution to come to this. As far as I'm concerned, I have a lawsuit against the association. And I have other stuff pending as well with the EEOC. So I have a conflict in that. I talked to the board, told them everything that was going on, explained to them, the catastrophic results of their agenda after the president had resigned and there was an acting president. And I don't honestly think that any of them are even familiar with the bylaws. I would have to correct in the email chains with the entire board. I would have to correct statements as to, operating within the guidelines of the bylaws, things like that. And I wish I had that answer. I certainly, so many people love the fairgrounds. There's so many volunteers, so many vendors that work there. And help out. And again, like I said, there was lots and lots of in-kind trade stuff going on because it was starting to be very fruitful and going forward, and it was starting to get a lot of recognition. We were trying new things, and so I hope that stuff doesn't just go away and it just goes back. The property was stagnant every year. It would only do the fair, and then it would sit vacant and stagnant. So they made enough money off of the fair to cover the yearly expenses, but there was no money if a water heater went down or building repairs or infrastructure repairs. There was no money there for any of that stuff. So those are the things that I had worked on and gotten, brought up to par. And it would really, really be heart-wrenching for that property to go away or for something to happen.
Yeah, and I went out to the fair, that caramel corn or that kettle corn or whatever, man, that stuff I had to eat. I got like 3 bags of that stuff. It was really good, and it seemed like it was a good looking fair out there. So I'm just looking at it from that standpoint that, hey, it was a decent fair. It had a lot of food. I'll tell you what, I've never seen so many food things in my life, and big turkey legs and whatnot. It was a lot of rides, and like I said, it looked like it was well done. Music out there and all that. So. Well, Jeremiah, we thank you for coming on, and I do not want to forget to do small talk, so we're going to bid you adieu. I'm going to play small talk, which is a totally different topic subject than what we're talking about now. And I'm going to run the magic 8 ball one more time.
One second. Jeremiah, all the best to you. I wish you well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me see what that magic 8 ball said about the show here tonight. Let's see. It says, It is decidedly so. So it was a good show. I would just say that the Magic 8 Ball is never wrong. Although I did pick the Colts to win the other night, that might not be true.
They did. Anyway, they won through the third quarter. You didn't pick them to win the fourth quarter. That's
Oh man, I knew there was a thing I was supposed to do there. So, all right. Well, hey, let's listen to Small Talk. Jeremiah, thanks for coming on. You're a brave soul. I hope everything turns out for you. I hope it gets worked out. I hope the fair keeps going on and all that wonderful stuff. Thanks again for coming on, everybody.
Hey, I live here in Hamilton County. We've got like a fairground too.
They have ham up there in Hamilton County.
My career started at Deer Creek.
Yay.
So.
That's awesome. And it is Deer Creek.
Yeah, it's always going to be Deer Creek. It's that's for sure. So,
Yeah,
all right.
Well, let's see what it was Deer Creek through the transition.
All right. Well, let's see what Mark Small's got to say about his friends from high school or wherever. So here you go.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk for November 29th, 2022. Tonight, something non-political. When we go through life in the United States, in this part of the country, there are three institutions basically in which people are socialized where they live together as peers. Otherwise, they are just living with their families, and not joining the masses of society at large. And those three institutions are college, military, and prison, because and these are the ages between 18 and 22, which are really important in terms of becoming an adult, knowing things about the world. Now, people can talk about really bad experiences that they had in college. No doubt there are terrible experiences some people have had there. And people can talk about really, really bad experiences they had in the military. No doubt, and that happens too. But prison is a place where there are no doubt really bad things that happen, because that's the purpose of the facility, the way things are set up in the United States. And I say all that because people can also have really good memories of college. And last weekend, one of my best friends got married out in Virginia, and I hadn't seen a couple of people there in years, and it was interesting just to be around people and realize also it's been nearly 5 decades I've known these people, and we were talking about some memories we had, and I was thinking about a lot of things coming back from that, but also I was thinking about what about people who were acculturated in the military, and when they get together, some of the things aren't so good, aren't so positive. And then the last thing is, what about prison? We form our personalities to a great degree in those years between 18 and 22. And yeah, I had some things that weren't real positive in college, and some of the people that I lived with there in a fraternity or in the dorm my first year, yeah, you have roommate wars, you have things that are going on with the people where you have disagreements. But that's the thing, you learn that people are different from you, and not only learn to tolerate them, but you realize they have to tolerate you. And maybe that's the difference between those three institutions. And it was just something that I was focused on, as well as driving on the interstate, coming back over 660 miles or something. It's Mark Small. This is Small Talk, November 29th, 2022. Peace, love, happiness, freedom. Take care.
Yeah, so that's funny. I'm actually flying out in the morning to go see, I go to Florida. I have my best friend from high school, and then some other friends that are builders that moved down there. They moved about 2 miles from each other. So I'm going to be, going through that whole thing he's talking about. It's like, you get older, you're like, is this person still the same person, or how did they get that way? Lucy, how did you get that way? That's all I got to say.
I got this way by being fabulous and going against the grain and reading at least a book for, basically my entire life. In fact, I would like to share the, and this is of course sarcasm, the shame that I felt as a 7th grader for constantly being harassed by my algebra teacher, because I always had like a book that I was reading behind my textbook. And so I constantly got in trouble. So I had to cycle through the library books in order to do that. But I would like to point out that Dorn posted a link to the case in the show notes or in the chat. So if anybody wants to go ahead.
Okay. I saw some stuff in there. I was trying to keep up with it. And, just like anything, I mean, we probably had double our viewers that we usually have because of, sometimes the clickbait or whatever, but, and I know after the show last week, we talked about this, if we wanted to do this show, and I think it turned out way better. It could have gotten way worse than that. It did seem, it. I don't know. It's just we put it out there. People make their own decisions on what it is. We had some people in the chat there that were obviously not pleased with it, and others that were like, "Huh, what's going on
I
there?"
just think it's a clear demonstration of top to bottom politics. People want to talk about conspiracy theories and crap, but I mean, a conspiracy by definition is just, a couple of people that get together and decide to do something that's not in somebody else's best interest. And so, even in something as small time as Marion County Fairgrounds in Indiana, we've got conspiracies going on and, alleged election, and campaign finance fraud. I mean, this is just ripe.
Yeah, that is, and people want to know this, and already, I think a lot of people already have a distrust about their government to begin with.
Not nearly enough. Look at how many people lined up for the clot shot. I mean, and look
a
how
whole
many
different
people,
story.
yeah, look how many people just went along.
I tried to watch
Ah,
that thing you did. I
died
couldn't.
suddenly.
I couldn't get through it. I almost died suddenly watching it. So
I got something better for the conspiracy theory time.
Oh, do you got that? So, Tiffany, what do you think about this? What do you think about our wonderful GOP at the fairgrounds? Look at Ed. He's like, I only had one person down there. I'm all good. But Tiffany, you had a bunch of your people down there.
Where? I'm so sorry. You were cutting out just a little bit.
Yeah, I see now. Wait, my feed. I can't hear. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's like,
No, I'm so sorry. You cut out just a little bit. What did you say?
Oh, I did really cut out. I think somebody's cutting my cord.
Yeah, she was frozen. Tiffy, it's really cute. You can go back and review the show because you were frozen with your eyelids down so you could see your eyeshadow.
The look on her face when they talked about the sexual harassment case, she was like, "Why is there a sexual what? What's up with that?" She looking up.
So, when he was talking, John, it made me think about what you always say: it's a club and you ain't in it. And when I think about him going from like maintenance man to executive director, he was almost in it. So
that close.
he's a man of really, really strong conviction. So that's a really good thing. But then also it kind of made me think about Dave Chappelle when he was on Saturday Night Live and how what did he call him? He called him something about like a truth-telling liar. I don't know, something like that, and Dave Chappelle's talking about, Trump and Hillary talking and, Hillary says, you don't pay your taxes. And he said, if you want me to pay my taxes, you need to change the tax code, but you won't because your friends enjoy the same tax benefits that I do. So until you do that, I'm not going to pay my taxes. And it just kind of made me think about like the way nonprofits run. There are a lot of event centers that run as 501c3s. And there's probably a reason for that.
Yeah, well, hey, Goodwill.
Snap. Nonprofit doesn't mean profitable. Doesn't mean that it's not profitable.
Doesn't mean no profit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like the CEO of Goodwill makes like 12 or 14 million a year. And I'm getting ready to do a Goodwill up there in Anderson, the masonry on it, and we get no sales tax. And it's like, it's a pretty big size job that we don't pay sales tax on because Goodwill is a 501c3.
It's not just the sales tax. You're also talking about property taxes, and when we talk about like when we've looked at land values in certain areas around South Bend, you have all these nonprofits, and I'm glad that you're doing some good, but you're also not providing any type of property tax in these areas. And so these areas that you're trying to help are literally getting money sucked away from them from schools and everything else.
Yeah,
so,
well,
hey, taxation is theft. So I got no problem with anybody that doesn't believe in stealing from individuals.
What I say, inflation.
Talking about the Robin Hood phenomena, though.
Yeah, inflation is taxation and taxation is theft. So, well, you talk about churches, the same thing. I mean, they're considered a nonprofit. So there's a lot of things like that. But, I think, in the long run, I think the good outweighs the bad and a lot of that stuff. But I know there is some people that have churches that really are churches, So
yeah, there's loopholes, and you can't be mad at people for understanding where the loopholes are and then working.
Loopholes. We got to have those. We got to have them. So, all right. Well, so Ed, what do you think about the Marion County Fairgrounds? You want to visit now, don't you?
Want
See
some
what it's like.
purple corn.
Oh, absolutely. I want to
Yeah,
learn more about this race ground, man. Yeah, this controversial
The
race
kettle corn, I'm
racetrack.
telling you, it's worth the drive. The kettle corn is definitely worth the drive. Well, we
I was
it's
going to
that
ask him
time of the
about funnel
show.
cake. That was going to be my first question. So
Well,
missed it.
Elephant ears.
I'm surprised. I'm
Just go to
surprised.
Aldi. Aldi at least once a year has a funnel cake making kit, complete with a little
Mhm.
silicone pitcher. Yeah, man, Aldi's my store.
I'm just wondering about all the deaf elephants because they cut off their ears to eat
Yeah.
them. I mean, it's sad. You guys like my bad dad joke to fill the time while Jeremiah was getting on there. It was good, wasn't it? Okay, hey, it's that time for the conspiracy theory. I actually had somebody send me one during the show here that I think you're going to be really shocked to understand that it's true. So let's get ready for that part. I see Tiffany's got 1 foot over there by the tinfoil, so let's go get him. Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week. See if I spelled conspiracy right. Ed doesn't even have gum tonight. What's up with that? You do have a nice clean shaven head, though. Did they just get that freshly done there?
But is it aspartame gum? That's the real question.
There we go. Now I'm ready.
Wow, this show is really, we got some props on here that Hollywood will be calling anytime.
Yes.
We want your props. We want your props. So this is, we got this and that going at the fairgrounds. Whatnot. Anybody got any conspiracies concerning a fairgrounds? Anybody got that? No, nobody? So we'll start with Lucy because it looks like your tinfoil hat is just.
Well, it's, my tinfoil hat is protecting me so well it can't even get, found by the green screen feature here. Yeah, so it's like totally taking my brain away.
I'm missing an
That's pretty
antenna
cool.
or two.
So anyway, this comes in the realm of Conspirafact, and Tiffany and John, you remember going to the Red Pill Expo in, since we were invited there, since we were media. And you might remember David Martin, the guy with the bow tie, the really super smart attorney that was talking about how the drug trade and the opium trade specifically, was here at the very founding of our country. So my conspiracy theory is actually an invitation for people to go to Red Pill Expo. I don't know if it's .com or .org, and go get the recordings for this last month. They had another gathering, another event in Salt Lake City, Utah. And what David Martin said on that was freaking awesome. I listened to it today. So basically the frame for the conspiracy is in 1880, the common people had more ways to generate electricity than we do now. Like he said, lots of people, was it 1880 or 1918? I don't know. He's going around.
The key on the kite.
No, that was Ben Franklin. He was, the 1700s.
Oh.
But it doesn't matter. Go listen to it yourself and you can tell me, which date is right, because he talked a lot about what happened in 1918. But he said, before that, people were already generating their own electricity. They had generators, they had windmills. There were land speed races between electric cars. Henry Ford had an electric car. He had one made of, hemp fiberglass. So there was a lot of innovation at that time. But there was a big problem with that. And the problem was that there was no toll booth position. There was no way, if you were generating your own electricity for your own electric car, for JP Morgan and his friends to get paid. And so the scheme of having a meter at everyone's home created a dependency where now, in order to get our energy, it goes through the meter. So whether it's pennies or dollars or hundreds of dollars per household, you have to pay for that electricity with FERNs, Federal Reserve notes. That keeps you a slave in the system. It keeps you on the grid. And how many municipalities actually have laws prohibiting you from not being hooked up to the electric grid? So that's my conspiracy. If you want to listen to it really eloquently and in depth, go to redpillexpo.com or .org or whatever. Get the recordings. You will not be disappointed. David Martin, man, he can really bring the heat.
Yeah, you did a good job explaining that. You always do. You put a lot more effort into this than I do. But I do. I have one tonight. So Tiffany, go ahead. I got a good
one. But I will say that, Lucy, I want to thank you for reminding me that people are still slaves, but I'm not the only one. So yay, we're all slaves.
No, no, it is absolutely true. I mean, if you even look at the history of landlords and serfs on the land, at one time, thank you, Dorn, redpilluniversity.org. At one time, the slaves were told what they had to do for jobs. But then it was discovered that if you allow people to follow some of their natural interests, some people will be better at other things. Maybe, your last name's Baker, but you should have been a smith, right? You should have been doing smith work. So our overlords discovered that if you allow people some self-determination, that your cattle actually become more productive. And so how do you manage people? And one of the best ways to manage people is by having a common unit of exchange that you can control and inflate. So what did we have? I'm just going to make up the numbers because I'm not sure exactly what they were. But I think from roughly the founding of our country to 2020, there was $15 trillion of US dollars, printed. That might have even been from 1913 to 2020. But then with the pandemic, it created an excellent opportunity to inflate our money supply by 40%. Now, there's this lag between the time the money is created and given and the time that it is spent that befits the people who get the money first, almost like a first mover's advantage. So while we're all waiting for our stimulus checks and everything, I think for every dollar an individual human being like us got, I think $93 or $930, some ungodly number, went to the political friends and big companies of our politicians. So that $6 trillion that was printed, and $5 trillion of it went to various other interests, they got the money first. So they got to get that money before you and I did, and they got to go out and spend all of that money that you and I are now paying back with interest. And of course, the insane thing about this is all that crap is created out of thin air in the first place. So Tiff, it's literally like you and I are queens in competing kingdoms, and John is the banker. And so, if everybody puts their money with John and, they trust John, he's a good upstanding citizen, we give him all of our gold. Well, if I give him 50 pieces of gold and he prints out 50 pieces of paper, everything's cool. But the minute he prints out 100 pieces of paper backed by those 50 pieces of gold, now all of a sudden we have 100% inflation. But see, only John knows that he's printed that money. So he can go to the cobbler and go to the baker before the rest of us figure out that there's too many dollars chasing too few services. So this is the scam of the millennia, maybe the biggest scam ever since the beginning of the earth and the creation, for goodness sakes.
Well, you got to have the internet to be able to do that, and we have it. So, what we're saying is that the trickle up theory is what they're going with on this economics is trickle up. So,
can I say something else?
Okay, go ahead. Because I know Tiffany's
yet.
got a really short one. Ed probably doesn't have anything.
Come out of Babylon. Come out of Babylon. The way that you take away their control is you stop using their medium of exchange. If you create, like, let's say that I'm able to grow extra tomatoes next year, which I failed at this year, but if I go offer those tomatoes to Tiffany and to Ed, and they don't use Federal Reserve notes to purchase those tomatoes from me, maybe we barter, maybe, something else happens. Guess what? The JP Morgan, the Clinton cartel, the Bush crime family, all of those people that are dependent upon taking a little tiny bit of every single one of those transactions, they don't get that. So the way to solve this is to simply stop using their medium of exchange. It's where all of their power comes from. Now, that's admittedly very difficult when you have to pay your electric bill, not with your good looks, but instead with Federal Reserve notes. But cut them off wherever you can.
And I don't got a chance with the good looks thing, but I do like being the banker. I liked how you put me in that spot. That was fun for the short time I was in it. But yeah. Okay, Tiffany, what do you got for us? Oh, wait, I was going to show you my Bigfoot picture. Go ahead.
Again, it is open season. We just had to release one back into the wild. It is what it is. There is concern with the weather growing cold. The days are short. There's a lot of concern. Holidays coming up. I mean, Yeah, a lot of concern.
A lot of concern to Bigfoot. I don't know if I can get this in here or not. Let me see if I can get it fast enough. Ed, go ahead while I'm looking for this picture here.
Man, just because John says something, I'm gonna be long and drawn out. So to go back to electricity, if you're ever in Southern California, there is a place, it is, oh man, the Gamble house. It's actually the house, the doctor in Back to the Future. It's the house that they shot. That's supposed to be his house. It overlooks the Rose Bowl. But one of the most amazing things is a woodworker there. They have some amazing woodworking. To hear the stories about some of the devices that they've created, because electricity was coming online and the family was so fearful of electricity that some of the lights even have like these wood things that you slats that you like slide down over, so that the family members who are afraid of the electricity like doing something, so that the wood apparently like was the reflective device that prevent them. It's amazing. So if you're ever in Southern California, go to the Gamble house, go check it out. There's some amazing Gamble house over Rose Bowl, and that's where my conspiracy theory comes, because this is also ties to Lucy. And so tomorrow is the deadline for the Rose Bowl to make their decision on the national championship for next year, whether or not they're going to be tied into it. Interest, and without getting too far into why the Rose Bowl would even hesitate of being part of the whole bowl situation, that's way beyond this discussion. But what I will say is, when Lucy's talking about the finances and everything else, what's that?
Can you give us a reason as to why they wouldn't want to be part of the system? In a nutshell?
So part of it is that they've long held that they have the New Year's time slot of 2 p.m. That is strictly their like held time slot, and that they want guarantees that going forward that they were still going to be guaranteed that time slot. When we're talking about expanding the playoffs beyond 4 teams, the only way to do that and keep Rose Bowl in that spot is to back the season up further. And so they aren't willing to guarantee the Rose Bowl their preferred 2 time slot on New Year's Day, because that may be a playoff day and they may have other games to play. It's either been you either keep your 2 o'clock spot, or you could be part of the playoff system, which may fall on a New Year, and you may have to take a different time slot. And so but there are, according to both sides, there's the issues are bigger than that, but that seems to be the linchpin of what's holding this up. But in the greater grand scheme of things, like when we're talking to what Lucy's talking about the power brokers, for me, as much as I love college football, one of the most amazing things is that the cabal that's been behind college football, who's controlled it. You have the Power 5 conferences, and for a long time, college fans have argued this is what would be best for the sport. These different playoffs, having more access and availability. But you've had these power brokers at these Power 5 conferences who've controlled not just who gets to the playoffs. That's what the fans are interested, but they've long fought for who controls where the money goes. All the bowl games, all of the playoff system, everything's rigged to make sure that the people who have the power can control the money, and that nobody else gets into these. And so I find it always fascinating when I listen to Lucy, especially coming from that following college football the way I do, is that when you have colleges who are supposed to be the educational institutions behind our country, and they're involved as deeply as they are, to me, it's a criminal venture, the way they control college football and the way they control where the dollars go. That if you got going up under this system and following this, they're just puppets by the time they're done after this.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all controlled out of Alabama too. Alabama seems to be the place that.
First it was Spirit Airlines, now college football. Wow, man.
Yeah. Guess what? Your college football will be on the I can guarantee you that. That's going to be cable's going to be cut. So, before we get to that, I did Thanksgiving Day. I went down and saw my sisters in Cincinnati, and apparently, Tiffany, these Bigfoots are not hard to find. I saw this Bigfoot out in plain sight at a gas station down by St. Paul or somewhere like that on I-74.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, I got it. And these people are looking at me like, what's that dude taking a picture of the Bigfoot for?
Wow.
You know, the kids, hide the kids. He's scaring the kids. But yeah, there you go. There's your Bigfoot. He says, hey, Tiffany, you got any cookies? So that was that. So here, and thank goodness I had one of my friends text me during the show about this. So he says, this is my friend Jonathan. He texts me, he says, guess what, John? And I say naturally, chicken butt. You say, guess what? You say chicken butt. That's what you say. He says, no. The earth is actually flat. Out of every conspiracy that turned out to be true, that I have never guessed that this was the one that would be true. Who would have known? So, I mean, it's a breakthrough. That's what they told me. So apparently the earth is flat. And I mean, how do you know it's not flat? I mean, really, it just, but I'm not going to be speculating on that. So, all right. With that being said, I didn't mean to kill the show with that terrible conspiracy theory after you guys had such great contributions tonight. So, yeah, well, we've survived. We've survived another show. Episode 96 is in the books. Now, this will be interesting next week because I think Lisa is going to be running the board because I'm going to be in Florida, and I don't think I have access to get any of this stuff done. So I've made a preview for the show next week. It's a guest. We have a mystery guest. So if you guys come up with a guest during the week, we'll put them on. And if you get a topic during the week, we'll fill that in too, because it's just. But I think my thing is like the name of the show is "Where's Johnny," and the show must go on is the end part. And we have a little shadow of a mystery guest. So I mean, I guess I could play the preview if you want me to.
Maybe we can invite the Purdue coach, and he can. Let's go with the Purdue coach, and he could tell us how he shocked the world and beat Michigan.
The Purdue coach, or you're talking about Michigan coach?
Yes,
that beat Ohio State. Yeah, isn't that Jim Harbaugh? Isn't that him, or is he still there?
No, this is against the Big Ten championship.
Okay. So Purdue's got to play them. Okay. All right. Well, I'll put a note in. I'm sure he'll return my call. He's not busy or anything. We might be able to get the Center Grove coach, the state champions. We might be able to get that coach on there. So all right. Well, hey, I think we can send this one home to mother, so to see. Oh, look, Dorn's going to put a Purdue Purdue by 6. Wow. I don't know about that. Michigan's pretty tough. So that Michigan is playing Purdue for the Big Ten title. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Something like that.
Okay. All right. Sounds like fun.
Indianapolis, please come by. Come to the home.
Yeah. Is it here? Is the game here? And it's here? I'm going to miss it.
Indianapolis.
So what day?
Yep.
Is it this weekend?
Saturday.
I'll miss it. Sorry, I'll miss it. But all right. Well, hey, let's find the ending to this show and send her on home. We may or may not see you next week. I'm thinking we're going to. So you might want to tune in and see what kind of train wreck we come up with me being way remote. I'll be on the show, maybe. Just it'll be phone or whatever I can muster up down there. So
do we have a topic?
No, we'll have one by then. So yeah, you guys are on your own. I'm on vacation.
The last 5 minutes.
It works too well. It keeps all kinds of thoughts away.
The whole show will be conspiracy theory. I got it. All right. Well, hey, you'll have to tune in next week to see what we have. So, and then we're inching closer to our end of the year 100th episode. Oh, grand finale for this year. So, thanks again, everybody. I think we had good guests. And wait, I could have brought Adam on. Adam, I hear you there.
Hello, John. How's it going?
Yeah, I just did see you. Sorry about that. I can take off my hat now. Or no, we're not off the air yet.
On.
Okay. Hold on, everybody. I got to take Adam off the air. And we got to close the show out.
Bye.
I thought
So
Tiffany
here you go.
was the one drinking.